Joy, thank you so much for being here and for sending me a copy of your book, which I'm going to read in depth probably this weekend or whenever I can find the time, because it's filled with so many good things that I bet most of us don't even know the difference between vitamins and minerals unless you're a doctor or someone who really studies this. And I was telling you that when I was going to school, we were required to read a book that, and I don't know who the author was, but it was called You Are What You Eat. And it was interesting, and I forgot about it until a number of years ago when I realized how important what we eat is to our body health, to our mental health. And that's a lot of what you cover in your book.
You are so correct, and I think what we eat is so underestimated by our society. People overlook the fact that what we eat affects how we think, whether or not we're happy, whether or not we look good. It has a lot to do with our overall life.
Our hair,
Our
our
hair,
skin,
everything,
everything.
everything.
Well, and you especially talk about minerals, and I think other than calcium and iron, those are probably the only two that I was very familiar with, and I do make sure I get the right amount of those.
Right.
But it seems to me like, and maybe this isn't true, that anymore we as the patient have to do so much more of the work ourselves when we have a problem before we even go to a doctor.
That is correct, because doctors aren't necessarily trained to prevent diseases.
Oh.
They're trained to treat illnesses. And for a while, nutrition wasn't necessarily focused on in medical school. And so if you have an acute situation, or if you have a chronic issue, your doctor is great at helping you address the symptom.
Right.
However, underlying many diseases, there are causes. And if we're going to really help ourselves, then we need to get to the underlying cause of the disease. And if we look at it from a basic perspective, what we put in our mouths and how much we eat is critical. And if our bodies aren't utilizing what it is that we eat properly, then we are more likely to get sick. And when we get sick, the focus is not so much by physicians, it's not, well, how is your diet necessarily? It's, okay, you have a headache, let me give you some medications to let the pain go away, let the pain go away. Or if you have diabetes, let me figure out a way to get your blood sugar down.
I see.
So it's up to us as consumers to identify what our lifestyle is, identify what we're made of, to figure out when things go wrong, to find out what it is we can do to get our bodies in the strongest position so that it can address these issues on its own.
And hopefully prevent so many things that we get as we age.
Exactly, because it's inevitable as we age that our organs age too, which people tend to overlook. We look at our faces and say, okay, we're sagging.
Lots of new lines.
But the same way that our face sags is the same way that our kidneys lose efficiency as we age, or heart lose efficiency. And so every organ in our body loses some efficiency as we age. And when that happens, our ability to do the things that we used to do when we were younger, or to absorb nutrients from food, that ability is reduced.
I see.
And that is when we need some help.
And if we can't, for some reason, get everything we need from food, which they say is the best way to do it, what about multivitamins and nutritional supplements and things like that?
Well, it depends on the type of multivitamin and how much of a multivitamin you need. Some doctors recommend that you just take a multivitamin just for insurance. I tend to disagree because sometimes what's in the multivitamin can create a problem. So if you have enough calcium in your system and you take a multivitamin with calcium, which sometimes they do, or if you take a multivitamin with vitamin D and you have too much, then that could become a problem. So what I suggest is that you at least on an annual basis undergo a complete nutrient test which will identify your levels of the various nutrients that you need to be healthy.
So this is in addition to, most of us get an annual checkup.
Yes, because
But you have to ask for these certain tests to be run, don't you?
exactly, because most doctors do not utilize those tests. They'll test for sodium and calcium and potassium, and
Maybe iron.
and iron, yeah, especially as women, they test for iron. But for the most part, they do not test for zinc or magnesium or phosphorus or any of those, copper, any of
Yeah.
those things. Vitamin C, I don't know, have you ever gotten a vitamin C test?
No,
Yeah,
but I
but it's necessary.
chew a vitamin C tablet most mornings.
Exactly, and you don't even know if you're really absorbing it, you
Or
know,
if I need
or
it,
if you
yeah.
need it, exactly. So if we won't know what our body needs until we go identify by testing, and once we know what we're lacking, then that's the point at which you would identify quality supplements to remedy the problem. But if you just keep taking stuff, then it's a crapshoot.
And sometimes we're prescribed something
Yes.
for whatever, and then we go to the shelf and find some things that says, oh, this will help with weight loss in addition to whatever we're being treated for.
Right.
And you can take so many different things, the interaction.
Exactly.
Is that also true with minerals,
Yes,
like it is with other?
Yes, in fact, there's a fine balance, as an example, and I talk about it in the book, between copper and zinc. So, for example, if you thought you were low on zinc and you decided, I'm just going to go to the store and get some zinc, that could, just taking zinc could disrupt your copper balance, because too much zinc affects your copper levels. And so you start having issues. So it's not a good idea just to identify it. You have to work with a competent physician or nutritionist who specializes in these things so that you can take the right amounts.
Well, and that was one thing I liked about the way the book is put together. It takes each one of the minerals, one at a time, tells what they're good for, where you can get them, what food source, and also what not to take them with.
Exactly.
And it makes it really, it's an eye-opener, or it was to me.
Yes, because I kind of put myself in the position of the reader. And as a consumer, I wanted to know how to understand and utilize this information in my day-to-day life.
Right.
I didn't want to go to a medical book to tell me all the formulas and the chemical
neither.
makeup of zinc and what it does to the cells. It's not that I don't care, but it's not practical.
Right.
And so I wanted something that was practical. So when we designed the book, the first thing I did was identified what chronic conditions or what conditions minerals are good for. So we talk about minerals and blood pressure. So, and obviously the minerals that are critical would be magnesium, sodium, and potassium. You need to have those minerals in good balance. And then we talked about minerals and cancer, and minerals and depression, headaches, migraines, PMS, when we had to go through that,
Right.
and stuff, digestion, etc. And then we took each of the individual minerals, as you correctly stated, and talked about what too much will cause, what too little will cause, and where you can find those minerals, and how much you need in your daily diet to be healthy. And then at the end of the book, we talked about how medication can affect your nutrient, including mineral content, so in your body, because medications can be good, but all medications have side effects. It's just that the value to you outweighs the negative. So, for example, antibiotics are great, but you shouldn't take them for a very long time because they will leach out certain nutrients out of your system, and they also kill good bacteria. So you want to know, after you finish taking a long course of antibiotic, that you get some probiotics and put the good bacteria back.
Is that also true of minerals, that once you've gotten, say you've had your next series of tests and it shows that you're within the range, should you keep taking them at a lower dose, or should you totally quit?
You have to play with your body. For example, you just keep the daily minimum required for your daily functioning. So if you're an extremely active person, then you may
Yeah.
need more sodium than or potassium than somebody who is not as active. So it
Right.
depends on your lifestyle. And then you would take what's necessary to maintain your lifestyle, because each day you utilize.
Sure.
So you want to know what's good for you.
But that testing is so
Testing.
important, and
Yeah.
something that I know I have a series of tests run every 3 months, but it doesn't include all these minerals. I got one of my last reports out and looked, to see. But I do appreciate you being here and making us aware. I think that's the first step, is education and
Correct.
becoming aware of what we put in our system. And also, like I say, reading the book was so easy because I could pinpoint the ones that were specific to me or my children or my husband or whatever. So thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you for having me.